So my name is Floresta. I'm 27 years old and I own Crust and Magic in Paltz, New York. And I was born in Long Island. I spent my childhood growing up there. And then when I graduated high school, I came straight to SUNY New Paltz. I took a variety of different art classes when I was there. I knew I wanted to study art. And then ultimately decided to get my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Photography, and I graduated in 2015, and I've been here ever since. I had a great time. When I was in college, I was like really concerned, I think as most college students are, especially with a degree in art. I was like, what am I gonna do with this, with my life? I knew I didn't wanna get like a studio photography job. I knew I didn't really wanna work in like sort of like commercial photography and things like that. So I was like, how can I incorporate making my work into my life and making a living? So when I was going to school for photography, even then I was more interested in creating sort of mixed media work. I worked with a lot of different alternative materials. I liked doing like photo transfers onto cardboard and canvas and all these different sort of like wacky things. I was really into making zines and photo books. So I think even then when I was sort of figuring out what I wanted to do, and I was like strictly a photo major, even then I really wasn't working with like traditional photography mediums. I really wanted to always make like things, like tangible things that you could have and hold and look at, and I like that idea of interaction, which I think is how the shop manifested itself as well. I like the idea that someone could come in here and yeah, you're shopping and you're buying clothes, but it's like, oh wow, you know, look at the textures and it's a whole thing and a whole vibe. When I graduated, I worked in service industry. I was waitressing and bartending. And I liked that gave me the sort of schedule where I was able to have the time to think about, you know, how else I wanted to spend my time. I had time to create my art. I had time to think about how I wanted to put it into the world. I did a couple of like art shows during that time while I was figuring it out. And then I realized that little by little, I wanted to make work that was sort of accessible, that people could have and own. And I was like, I don't think that like making large scale fine art paintings or prints is the way to do this. What about like furniture? So I started hand painting furniture. I'm really into like decorating and curating a space. Yeah, and then that eventually turned into clothing and Crust and Magic merchandise. The name Crust and Magic came from, I was thinking about, I knew I wanted to have like a 2-word thing about the relationship of like 2 sort of contrasting words. And I was looking at the imagery that I was creating for the brand. I was working, you know, in watercolors at the time, and I was making all these like kooky kind of like crusty girls. And I was very into the word crusty. So, yeah, so I was thinking like lip gloss and slime, or like, you know, these 2 things. And at the time I was also painting a lot of like sort of like, I would call them like wizard-esque type creatures. So I like this like magician aspect of it, like these like sparkles and stars. And so I'm like, oh, they're magic. These people, it's magic. It's this whole other like dimension and, you know, like sparkly feeling, but also this sort of like hairy leg, crusty toenail, slime from the mouth, gritty teeth. Like it's the marriage of these 2 ideas. So the crust is that like grit and the magic is that like fun, glittery, cute vibe. People are always asking if the characters are like, are they all the same person? Are they somewhat specific? Do you use reference from your life? I've always sort of just thought of them as like me and my friends, you know, like the people. I think I'm really attracted to this energy, this like feeling of, it's like a celebration of self-ownership, I think. I think about like where I got the ideas for like the color palette and like the sort of textures. And I think that in terms of like where I drew inspiration from, like different creative factors in my life, I think like growing up and watching a lot of like Nickelodeon and that sort of like Slime Time Live energy, Britney Spears era, that sort of like pop culture time. I think that like when you're a kid like that, you're just a sponge and you're absorbing everything. And I remember watching these cartoons and being like, wow, this is so crazy. Like somebody drew this, somebody made this, and they're taking you into this alternate reality. And I think that I just remember thinking about that and being like, that's so awesome. I want to do that. So eventually I would love to make like Crust and Magic animated cartoons, but that's a whole other like, you know. So I opened this shop location in 2019, spring of 2019, but the business Crust and Magic I started in 2017 around. I graduated in 2015, so I started thinking about the concept of Crust and Magic around probably 2016, 2017. I launched my like rinky-dink online store, first edition Crust and Magic. I think it was a Store Envy online 2017. When I started to do that and started to make different merch and clothing, I got into the clothing aspect of Crust and Magic. That was developing. I was like, I would love to have like a pop-up shop. So on the New Paltz bartering community, somebody listed a space on Water Street Market upstairs next to the parish that they were practicing they were doing their therapy practice out of, subletting for a month or 2 months. And I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity to do a little pop-up shop. I can't sign a year lease. You know, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just want to try it out. So I was working at Bacchus, waitressing at the time and bartending. And I was like, I can sort of finagle my schedule to do this pop-up shop. I'm going to try it out. Why not? You know, if I have a full-time job. And that's when Chris Owens and I's friendship really blossomed. He had just moved back to town. We didn't really know each other that well before then. He'd always been a really supportive of like local arts. He bought like things from the website and I was like, who's this amazing man that's supporting me? He's so sweet. So he had just moved back to New Paltz at the time and came to the pop-up shop like every day.
It was really cool. It was the first time that she had her own space with all her different designs, art. There was a lot more for like art, you know, not so much the clothes over there. And so, you know, we were friends and I would just pretty much, I was unemployed at the time. I had just, I was in a band and I had just stopped doing that. I had actually started experiencing some chronic health issues. And so I was really, you know, I'm a singer first and foremost.
Oh shit! That's what I'm talking about! Woo! Woo! I'm gonna hit you.
And it kind of forced me to pivot and start thinking of other ways that I can, you know, do art, but maybe that's not necessarily what I was doing before. So I was with her all the time over there, and we would sit and she would start painting on clothes, whether it was jackets or anything else, and I would just kind of sit there and shoot the shit with her. And then there was one day I got a purple leather jacket from the Salvation Army, and then I brought it over there and I was like, can I paint with you, like, you know, here? So we were sitting there and that's when really at least the collaborative idea came to pass. But so it all started at that pop-up, and then we were saying at one point, you know, oh, this would be great if we could do this together at some point, maybe in a larger space, maybe in a more permanent space too.
And so when that eventually ended, it was only a month and a half. I had talked about for a while, I would love to do that again. You know, I think it'd be so great. And he was like, you know, I'm really into like thrifted wear, and I'm really into doing, you know, other like sort of consignment with local artists. Like it would be so cool to collaborate on something together. And I think it would be a little bit easier. He lived right up the block and saw that there was a for rent sign. We contacted the landlord, and all of a sudden we were like signing the lease. So we opened in the spring of 2019. So we were open for like a year. Almost, I think even probably less than a year. And then So before we had to lock down. So I was like, there's no way we're gonna make it. Like, this is a very weird, oddball thing. Like, if all these amazing businesses you hear about that have to close, how the hell are we gonna stay in business when we're making like tie-dye t-shirts with like bikini girls in them? You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like a thing that people need during COVID-19. Extremely close with my family. So another thing about this was like, okay, so obviously I couldn't see my family for a long time. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away during COVID, not from COVID, thank God, but you know, life still happens during a pandemic. So it's like, you know, you didn't die from COVID, but all life is still going on and regular things are still happening. So he passed away, and being so close with my family, I'm like, I have to be there. So luckily I was able to get COVID tested, quarantine, do the whole thing. But now I'm helping to take care of my 90-year-old grandmother, taking her to get vaccinated. Thank God we can get her an appointment to get this freaking vaccine. But it definitely adds a layer of stress having someone die like that and being like, I want to be around, I want to be present, but I have to run my business. It's hard enough as it is. And then having someone so close to you and going through that process and grieving, spending time there and here and trying to make sure everyone's taken care of. I feel like it's part of my nature to keep myself busy and make sure people are taken care of and responsibly, and then stressing, I hope they don't get this stupid, horrible virus. But I think that people have been so supportive of small businesses. I'm so grateful. I mean, every time I get an online order, like, because obviously the shop had to be closed for a while. So people that ordered online, I mean, genuinely, like, breaks my heart in a way, because it's so amazing that people care and that they want to like help you out and that they have an interest in the product, and they're just supporting it, and I'm so grateful for it. So by some way we're here. We're able to sort of maneuver finances. This summer, luckily doing the farmers markets, I was able to stow some money away, do things like that. So yeah, it's definitely not easy. I think that like the mental toll of being in a pandemic and running a business and worrying about, is everyone that's coming in wearing a mask? Am I safe? Am I gonna like infect myself or the people around me? It's the layers of the stress are intense, but I'm so grateful to still be here. The fact that like I have a shop in a pandemic still, when so many amazing people have closed, there's no other word. It's just, I'm so grateful to be here, but it's not easy. So nowhere to go but up. That's what I think. So hopefully you see us all over.